including, like we said, this PowerPoint in case you want to go back and reference it afterwards. So there are a couple different categories that we usually encourage students to apply to when it comes to looking to different types of schools that they're going to be applying for. So one is the target school. So this is the type of school that is pretty on point with what a student is achieving and what they're looking for in terms of GPA, location, their preferences, SAT scores if submitting them. So pretty much like what, they're pretty comfortable that they would get in. Most of the students that are applying or going there are pretty similar to them. So those are our target schools. And then of course, reach schools too. So these are schools that perhaps are a little bit out of the student's reach. So perhaps a little bit higher of a GPA than they have, but the student might still really be interested in going to that school. We do encourage students to still apply to a couple of those schools as well if there are ones that they want to go to. Just because like it's never guaranteed that they're not going to get in. So schools do look at a variety of criteria when looking at accepting a student. So even if the GPA is a little bit out of their range, we still encourage them to apply anyway. And then safety schools. So these will be the schools where the student's GPA is typically higher than what the school is looking for. And the student's pretty confident that they're going to get in. So we always encourage students also to have some safety schools just as a backup, just so that they have somewhere that they know that there's a good chance they would get into, just in case they don't get into some of their other schools. And this is what we tell all students of all different levels to look for. And then for types of college admission, there's the four main types of admissions. So early action is one that a lot more students are moving towards doing, but it's definitely not required. But early action is you are applying just pretty much earlier in the year. A lot of them are starting now. Typically, those are deadlines between October and November or December. So these are students who want to get those applications in sooner. They'll hear a decision back from the school sooner. And a lot of students just like to be able to get it done and get their acceptance before the rush of students going in for a regular decision. In contrast to early action is early decision. So early decision is binding. So students, if they're going to do an early decision application, they could only apply that way to one school. They would have to sign a contract with the school stating that if they were to get accepted to that school, they would absolutely be attending. They would have to then rescind all other applications from other schools. So this would be a decision that students would have to make very carefully. They would, of course, go over it with parents, with the counselor, just to make sure that it's a decision that they definitely feel comfortable with. If there's a student who knows with certainty that there is a school that they are going to want to go to, that they feel confident going to, then early decision could be an option. But most students will move towards early action just to kind of keep those options open. Regular decision is similar to early action, where you can apply to as many schools basically as you want with regular decision. It just happens a little bit later in the year. So this will extend typically into the spring. So this is students who perhaps didn't get their application together for early action or just wanted to take a little bit more time exploring different school options for them. Regular decision is totally fine. They can absolutely just continue to apply to those schools throughout the school year, but definitely check with the individual schools on what those deadlines look like, because each school will have different deadlines. And then finally, rolling admissions it's open throughout the school year typically. And basically as the student submits their application, they hear back from the school, usually within a couple weeks to a month or so. Each school will be different, but they'll hear back then within that time frame instead of having to wait for the school to release all of their decisions to all their students. So Naviance is one of the big platforms that we use. So students will often fill out the Common App, which we will get to later on in the presentation. But as counselors, we don't access the students' Common App accounts. The way that we're able to track which schools the students are applying to is by Naviance. So students are able to, and would have to connect their Common App and Naviance accounts. So then we could go on Naviance, we could see where students are applying, we could see the deadlines of the schools where students are applying. We can send documents like transcripts and letters of recommendation off to the schools for students through Naviance. So we often do encourage students to just get familiar with Naviance. There are a lot of really great features that it offers when it comes to college and career exploration. So those are always available to students. I know parents have logins as well. For anybody who doesn't have their login or forgot the password or whatever, just contact your student counselor. We'll be able to reset it for you. It's a very easy fix. So just, reach out if that's needed, of course.
Mrs. Feinberg, real quick, just to jump in, the Naviance platform is important because if the school does not appear on the Naviance list, we have no idea that a student is applying there. So although not every single school will be a Common App school, they all must appear on Naviance. The parent access does not have the same accessibility. So there's different functionality. So ensuring that the student as well as the parent have the correct login, as Mrs. Feinberg said, the guidance department can reset those passwords through an email. It takes 2 seconds. So, and just be sure that if you're monitoring and you're watching, this process that your children are going through, and you want to, keep an eye out, you might not have the same accessibility, which we run into as far as requesting letters of recommendation. It's not, it doesn't appear as an option for parents, but it does on the student version of the platform. So I just wanted to mention that real quick.
So to access Naviance, it's going to be again through the Wayne Valley website. Under the students tab, there is an option for all different links for students, and they'll be able to access Naviance right through there. So some of the features that we kind of started mentioning that students have access to through Naviance, there's a big variety. So there are resume building tools that students can use, different college search features, and comparing colleges. So some stuff that, again, we'll get a little bit more into and show you more of what that looks like throughout the presentation. Tracking deadlines for applications. So key for students, but also key for the counselors, because we're able to make sure that we have all of those deadlines listed out for each student. And we're able to make sure that we're getting all of our documentation in for those students by those deadlines. College rep visits who come to Wayne Valley. So we do have reps from a wide variety of colleges come into the school each year to do visits with students. Students are able to sign up for that through Naviance and go and talk to those reps about the college more, find out more information, show their interest in the school. So it's going to be really important if the student is considering that school. College tracking, scattergrams and graphs. So this is really good too for students if they want to see how they stack up compared to other applicants. So definitely helpful to see if the school would be more of a target school, a reach school, or a safety school for them. Various resources, so information about financial aid, about testing, just various resources that are going to be important in that college application process. The scholarship search as well. And a lot of this stuff, again, we will get to more in depth. This is kind of just the overview, and then email communication. So oftentimes if there's information that we need to get out to parents and students, we're able to just send that out to families through Naviance. So it is helpful in that way to just keep communication open as well. So this is what Naviance looks like when students log in. This is the homepage that they'll see. So they are able to, the circled part on the left-hand side, they're able to search for colleges that they might be interested in. Of course, there's also various features on the top. The self-discovery kind of covers more about like self-assessments, strengths, and different areas that students might consider for career paths. The career tab talks more about like if students want to go directly into careers or careers that they might want to look into after college. It kind of helps them just to plan more for that. The colleges tab will kind of open it up throughout the presentation and show what it looks like, but you can do things like adding schools that you're interested in to keep track of, requesting your letters of recommendation there as well. And then under the little area that says my favorites, students can start with colleges that they're thinking about just to keep track of the schools that they're looking into, which then turns into, of course, colleges that they're applying to as they narrow down that list and have the list of schools then that they are sending applications into. So this is the colleges tab. Like we had mentioned, there are various features. Students can request or have to request their letters of recommendation from teachers here. So it's a pretty simple process, but we know that sometimes it can be hard to just find it and to get the process started. So this is a great hub for students for that. Oh, you can go ahead. Okay, so for the Common Application, this is typically the way of applying that we encourage a lot of students to use. It just kind of makes it easiest for the students. It's one place where they're able to fill out their application and submit everything to all of the schools, usually most of the schools. Majority of schools will take Common App, some don't, but a lot on the whole do. And so a lot of students just find it easiest to fill this out and just send it off to all of their schools in one go. So we typically, like I said, recommend using Common App, even if the school has its own application or if it's also in coalition, which we'll mention right after this, but Common Application just kind of lets them get it all done. Like I said, they're able to also connect Common App with Naviance. So then as counselors, we're able to see which schools they're applying to and those deadlines. So it makes it easier for us to make sure that all of their stuff gets sent in. And then because everything is sent in electronically, both through Common App and then Naviance, once we send in our materials too, everything is processed immediately because it just gets sent right through.
I think it's important to note that in this process, when students are applying and they let us know, the portal will also send us an email letting us know a student has submitted the application. It's important that students, after we have confirmed as the counselor that we have submitted, we get a timestamp. We get a digital receipt indicating that we have submitted the documentation. Resoundingly, we recommend that the students contact the college independently, either by email or by phone, to verify on their end, because computers are not perfect. They're not foolproof. Things happen. This information sometimes goes through server farms. It gets processed differently at every school. So one way to guarantee that documentation has been submitted is to call or email to verify on the student's end. Because like I said, although we get a digital timestamp, that's not 100% guarantee that they have everything. Simple email, phone call saying, my name is so-and-so. I've confirmed with my counselor that all my documentation has submitted. Can you please confirm that for me? And they'll put you on hold. Usually it's a grad assistant in the main office. They'll look it up and they go, yep, we have everything. If not, sometimes there are computer glitches and we have to resend. We cannot resend through Naviance, unfortunately. So in that case, we usually look to get the contact email for an admissions counselor and send the material that way. Does it happen a lot? It happens enough for us to mention it, okay? So sometimes we'll have students come down and a deadline will pass and they'll say, I just got an email from my school. The deadline was 3 weeks ago and they said they haven't received my information. What colleges do is they put the onus and the burden on the student and the school counselor at the high school level to ensure that the paperwork is submitted. That way they don't have to weed through 10,000 email applications to say, hey, we didn't get the material for these 4,000 students. They resend blanket emails. And at the very bottom, there's a little line that says, if you've confirmed that you have submitted all your materials, please disregard this email. So it can be a little misleading sometimes when colleges send those types of correspondences, which is why we recommend as soon as we have confirmation that we have that discussion, say, hey, I submitted all your stuff. You should definitely call those 4 schools and give it a couple of days and then call them and verify they have all your stuff. That way we know there's no issue. So that's usually our like sideline guidance, because it's kind of one of those things with human error and computer error. It just kind of happens. Okay.
So information for the Common App, when students are filling out the Common App, it's going to ask for some of these questions that are dependent, of course, on their school and their class. So the class size for this class is 304 students. Class rank is something that we often do get questions about. So We report rank by decile. So we would say this student is in the top 30% or the top 70% of their class, whatever the case is. And that's based on GPA. So again, this is information that was also sent out to students. So students should be aware of this, but a lot of times students are kind of uncertain about what it means or whether or not we also send their numerical rank. We don't, we only send it by decile. Students can self-report their numerical rank if they choose to do so. So if they want that, they can always ask their counselor to see what their rank is. But again, that's not information that we send to schools ourselves. GPA scale is on a 4.0 scale. And GPA is reported as weighted. So that means that for students who have taken AP classes, taken honors classes, take now enriched classes this year, it's going, any of those GPAs, they're going to show as weighted. Schools will know that we report GPA on a 4.0 scale. They'll know also that the GPA that we're submitting for students is weighted and kind of holds that weight from those advanced classes that they might have taken. So along the same line, as enriched classes, as you know, or as you probably know, they are weighted now. It's not going to change GPA retroactively. So if a student took an enriched class last year or sophomore year or freshman year, it's not going to change on their GPA, but it will impact their GPA for this year. For anybody who is kind of feeling like that's not really going to make much of a difference, schools will receive the student's initial transcript, which usually is sent out very early on in the year. So it really won't have any grades so far. But then many schools will ask for a mid-year grade report, or students will request that those get sent out. So colleges will be able to see what students have done for the first half of their year so far in senior year. So they'll definitely be able to see what students are doing. So of course we encourage students to continue working hard through senior year, but they'll also be able to see if they're taking weighted enriched classes this year. And then final transcripts would get sent out at the end of the year only to the school that the student has chosen to go to. So schools will continue to see that final GPA from their senior year too. So the coalition application, this is a similar to Common App, just in the sense that it's another application portal online. Much less schools take coalition. And it does have a feature where you can add different media to your locker on coalition. So it's an option for students, but again, like we mentioned before, we do typically encourage students to use Common App. A lot more schools are on Common App. It's just a very efficient way for students to submit their applications. But again, coalition is out there. If students feel strongly about using it, it exists for them. So for students who either are unsure of what to do after high school, are considering different routes, or know that they want to go directly into a job or a career field right after graduating high school, Naviance also has a lot of helpful resources in terms of careers as well. So under the careers tab, students are able to explore different career options if they're just not quite sure where to start. They can explore different clusters and pathways. Students are able to do different assessments on Naviance that are going to go over their skills with them, and then what skills would match well with different careers. So there are a lot of helpful resources again on Naviance for students who are just not quite sure what area they want to go into. And then of course too, there are various options and resources for students who possibly want to consider an alternative route even then college or career. So students who might want to go into technical school, the military, different trade schools as well. So under Naviance, like we started to mention before, students will connect Common App with Naviance so that we can see where they're applying. But then one of the big features as well under Naviance is eDocs. So this is something that is important for counselors when we are submitting documents for students to get those over to the admissions office for their different schools. So students do have to list out all the schools that they're applying to and colleges I'm applying to under Naviance. They can also, like we said, connect their Common App with Naviance, and it'll add those schools as well that they already have added on Common App. So it's helpful in that regard. Students do have to request that their transcripts be sent. There is a transcript release form that we handed it out to seniors today during the presentation. So they should have that, but basically we have them look over their transcript. Not that mistakes frequently happen, but we need students to look over their transcript and say, yes, this is all correct. This is what should be getting sent out to schools. And then once we have their signature and parent signature, we'll be able to send all of that out for them as well. So again, students will link their Common App and Naviance account. There will be, when students log into Naviance and go under colleges I'm applying to, there's going to be a big red banner on the top of the page that says, do you want to link your Common App account? So it's pretty easy to see once you get there, but sometimes it's just not so easy to get there and find. So if there's ever any concern or confusion on finding it, just let your child's counselor know and we'll be able to walk through it with you. But once you see that red banner, there's just a button to press, you press it, it'll let you log into Common App, and then the two accounts are linked. So under Common App, one of the pieces that students will have to go through before we can send out anything for them is the FERPA waiver. So basically the FERPA waiver is asking if students are willing to waive their rights to see, well, the big part for them in their application is to waive their right to see what's said about them in their letters of recommendation. So students are allowed to say that they do not waive their rights and they do not, they would still do the FERPA, but they would say that they don't waive their rights. We always recommend that students do waive their rights. There's a couple reasons for that. One is some teachers might be more hesitant to write a letter of recommendation if a student is not waiving their rights, because then there's the possibility that the student could see what was written in the letter of recommendation. Some teachers don't feel comfortable with that. I want to reassure everyone too, we said the same thing today to seniors during the presentation, but they will never ask a teacher for a letter of recommendation, have the teacher agree to it, and then have the teacher write a bad letter about them. It's just not going to happen. If a teacher's agreeing to write a letter, they're going to write a good one. So there shouldn't be a concern about that. Another reason why we recommend that students waive their rights is it just shows kind of that the letters are, they weren't influenced by the student in any way. Schools will know that they haven't been seen by the student. Students are allowed to not do that, but we recommend that they do waive their rights on FERPA.
I think statistically, if we consider a span of time of even the last 5 years, I think we have maybe a handful in the last 5 years of every single senior class that has maintained their FERPA right. So resoundingly, most students, I would say probably 99% will waive their FERPA right. It, like Mrs. Feinberg said, it just gives more value that the letter never passed through the student's hands, which if you were applying to a job, same thing would go, your letter would go directly to whatever that job is, because it just carries more weight. It looks better. Does it stand out as a red flag? We can't say specifically, but it's possible, so just some background on what that might look like.
So this is what that red banner looks like when connecting the Common App and Naviance accounts. So again, logging into Naviance under colleges I'm applying to, it should pop right up on the screen if the student hasn't already matched them. Sometimes students will think that they're matched and then they'll go in and see this. We will be able to see once they're matched. So if we see that it's not, then typically it's possible that the student missed it or thought that they had done it. But if not, it's no big deal. They're able to just go back in, find this banner, click match accounts, and it goes through. So it is a pretty easy process. But again, I know it can be sometimes confusing for students to find it in the first place. So again, if there's any confusion or concern, just let the counselor know and we can kind of walk through it too.
This comes up every year with
Yeah.
a lot of students. So in the order, this is the order. Common App, either waiver, maintain the FERPA, signing off on the FERPA, and then going to Naviance and clicking match accounts. So you got to go to Common App first and then to Naviance to link the two accounts. And sometimes that process gets lost because it's not articulated anywhere. It's sort of you stumble upon it, or we've mentioned it plenty of times. So that's certainly something to make note of.
So you're able to see on Naviance what kind of application the school, what they accept. So the little computer box that says CA means that the school accepts Common App. So that would be just the easiest process for students. If they're already filling it out, they know that they'll just be able to send that off to schools. Sometimes it comes up with a question mark. The computer is just unsure of what it is. They could be on Common App, could be just that they take their own application, but sometimes it just pops up as being uncertain under Naviance. Don't know what
The
Mr.
open
Paul, would you
box
like-
means it's not a Common App. So it's probably the coalition application or directly to the school's website. That's what the
Thank
empty
you.
box is.
Yeah, on the whole, most schools will come up as taking Common App, so that is what we see the most often. The one that we typically see the least often is schools who still only take mail-in paper applications. Some schools still do. It doesn't come up quite that often, but they're out there. And if that's where a student's applying to, we are more than happy to send that application out that way too. So something that some schools ask for, a lot of the bigger schools will ask for a self-reported academic record. So basically it involves that the students submit the classes and grades that they've taken and received throughout their years in high school already. So they're responsible for reporting those accurately. Schools are able to cross-check. So if they look back and see that what the student reported does not match with official school records, there could be concern there, of course. So of course, we always encourage students, just do it accurately, take your time, go through it, make sure that you're filling it out properly. If there's any question or concern on how to fill it out, students can check with us. But we do have information here. This is accessed also through the counseling page through Wayne Valley. So there is information on how to fill out the SRAR. So this could be a helpful resource for students who do have to fill that out for certain schools. So one of the interesting features that we started to mention before on Naviance is scattergrams. So this kind of helps students to get an idea of what types of students are being accepted to different schools. So they're able to search different schools that they might be interested in, get an idea of what type of GPA or SAT score students have when they're being accepted, and kind of see like how they match up. So where the little kind of like where that red circle is on the graph is kind of showing the average type of student basically being accepted. So all the green check marks show people who had been accepted, what kind of GPA they had and what kind of SAT score they had. The green circle shows people who were waitlisted and then accepted later on. The blue circle shows people who were waitlisted and then unknown what ended up happening with their application. And then we've got some of the red that shows either waitlist denied or denied from the start. So this is helpful, again, for students in seeing if a school is a reach school for them, or if it's pretty much on target or a safety school. So again, we do want students to have a good balance of those types of schools when applying. But this is a really good way for students to be able to tell how they stack up. So they can kind of tell from their SAT score if they've taken it or their GPA and see, if they could potentially be a good candidate for that school or if it would be a good match for them. Now, of course, something that we always like to point out is that you can see at the top, like there are some red X's mixed in with the green check marks. So sometimes things happen, students don't get accepted for one reason or another, even if they have a higher SAT score or higher GPA. But then likewise, we see some green check marks down amongst the red X's. And so sometimes students are accepted even if they don't have the highest SAT score or GPA. So that's why we always still encourage a student to apply if they are really, really set on a school. We don't want to discourage a student from applying if they perhaps don't have that GPA or SAT score that's on target with other applicants. So schools will look at such a variety of materials. They look at those letters of recommendation. They look at the student's involvement. They look at students' interest as well, just if they've shown that they're interested in the school, if they've visited the college, if they've talked to any college reps before. So all of those things come into play.
Just so everyone is aware, this is all internal data. These are all Wayne Valley students. So since 2011, when they first instituted this program, the Naviance platform, they've been collecting data. That's part of the graduation survey that we require every single senior to fill out. So that way they're providing data for the future students at Wayne Valley. These are all Wayne Valley kids. Every single school that students apply to, you click on under the colleges tab to view various colleges. If we have data on it, it goes into a scattergram. That's part of the system. But this is good because they're not looking at kids around the country. They're looking at kids that are in their school that graduated before them. So it's really good data because this is the demographic. These are our kids that are being accepted or waitlisted or denied, either any of these. So that's important to note that this isn't just random data. This is our data. This is our kids.
And then one of the other features in Naviance as well is the college compare. So students can list different schools that they're interested in. And then they could see like their GPA compared to other people's GPA, their SAT scores, PSAT scores, ACT. So all different kinds of data in here. You can see there's the green check marks. This is kind of showing like, are you on target with where other students are who are applying to this school? And then the red X's show kind of like, are you maybe a little below what other people are having when they apply to these schools? So it kind of is another good resource for students just to get an idea of how they stack up compared to other applicants. Now, again, remember, based on the scattergram, like some students get into these schools who do not have the same GPA or SAT scores as their peers who are also applying. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get rejected right off the bat. It just gives a student a possibly more realistic idea to say, maybe this is more of a reach school for me. Again, not saying that they are going to get denied from the school, but it gives students a really good idea of where they stand in comparison to other people who are also applying.
This is a real eye-opening moment for a lot of students. This is really the opportunity where it's the reality check, because if they go from that fantasy phase of where am I going to go to college to the actual planning phase, they put their data in where it says Liz Lemon, this is our dummy account to show off examples. They put in their data, and then let's say they have a bunch of schools they want to apply to. So see all these X's, that means that this person has not fulfilled the criteria as according to the standard for this school. So this can be it can make students feel not so good, because maybe they, prior to really getting involved in this process, may have in their mind, oh, I want to go to this school, I want to go to that school. So this is a reality check, honestly, which is why we push for target reach and safety with regard to the ways in which students are applying, because they're gonna see this. This isn't something that's hidden. As soon as they put all this data in, it's gonna give hard data. So we absolutely guide our students to apply to appropriate schools. Let's say we have a student that has like a 3.2, 3.3. We're not going to recommend them to apply to Northeastern, who's looking for a 4.1. Okay, we're not going to discourage, but we're gonna have those conversations with students so it's a realistic approach, and they're not wasting money sending out applications to schools that they're not going to get past the first read. So this is really where we really get into the actual planning phase.
So scholarships are another feature under Naviance that students can search for. Again, under that colleges tab, on the right-hand side, we've got scholarships. So scholarship list, it's going to give a good idea of kind of like those larger scale scholarships out there. So these are types of scholarships where perhaps students are competing against a lot of other students. So it can be tiring. It can be a lot of work to send out applications. And sometimes students feel like they're just really not getting anything in return. It's possible that they could send out applications for scholarships and not get any of them, which can be discouraging for students, but this is not the only way to get scholarships for college. So most schools will give merit-based scholarships or need-based scholarships. It's going to depend on the school. The ones in Naviance listed are really just those like independent scholarships that you're not getting through a college or university that you're going to. Something else to note as well is that Wayne Valley has community scholarships each year. Those typically open up around March. So we always inform students when those are opening up. We'll typically go into all of the senior English classes and go over the process for applying and the different scholarships that are available to them as a Wayne Valley student. So those we recommend that all students apply to, just because it's going to be just a better chance that they get one of those. They're competing only against their peers for those, and there's a lot of them. So that's something definitely to keep an eye out for. We always get questions about when that is. It's in the spring. Last year it was in March that it opened up, but again, we will keep students and parents on top of when that's going to be this year as well. For letters of recommendation, so we typically recommend that students get two. Some colleges will ask for less. Some colleges will sometimes ask for more, but it's not really common that they would ask for more. They might accept more, but rarely require that students would send more. So two is a pretty safe number. So we typically recommend, students ask teachers who they either have a good relationship with, or a teacher that they've taken multiple classes, or a teacher who teaches the subject area that they plan to go into in college. So those would be great teachers for students to think about asking. It's hard for a student to ask a teacher that they had once freshman year and then never had again. The teacher probably just doesn't know them as well, but students should have a good idea of who to ask, and who they feel they have a good relationship with. So those are the teachers that we really recommend asking. And then we always tell students to ask teachers in person first. So before they go and fill out the letter of recommendation request on Naviance, they should always ask a teacher in person first, and then go and do the Naviance request. Students should ask now if they haven't already. I know that some students have already started, some students asked last spring, but we don't want students to feel discouraged if they haven't asked yet. It is still early on in the year. We just recommend that students ask early as possible, because teachers do start to get very busy. Sometimes teachers get very busy. They sometimes get a lot of requests from students to write those letters. So they want to make sure that they're taking on a reasonable amount so that they can give each letter the attention that they deserve. And then referencing back to FERPA, again, we recommend that students waive their rights. Sometimes teachers might ask if they've done that. And so, sometimes teachers might just not feel as comfortable writing a letter of recommendation if students say that they haven't waived their rights. So those are all things to keep in mind with the letters of recommendation.
Side note, teachers are doing this on their own time. It's not part of the job description. They're doing it because they want to support student achievement. As Mrs. Feinberg said, asking early is important because there are upperclassmen teachers that teach 11th and 12th grade coursework that get a lot of requests. There are teachers that get 40 and 50 requests every year. So they do work hard in personalizing the letters, which is why we recommend asking early, ask in person, send the request, and then it gives the teacher a timeline, and they sort of will set up in that way to send out those letters, or to get those letters written rather.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then
Sorry.
So this is how students this is how students
We
will
do have a
put in
quick
those.
question. Do you guys, we're just gonna hop in with
Yeah.
Mr. Dale and
Hi,
Hi.
good evening.
How are you?
Hi,
Hi, I just have a quick question about the letters of recommendation.
Sure.
Nick's applying for early action. And so I just wanted to know, is there some sort of a notification in Naviance that he'll receive once the letter has been completed? Or should he just be following up with his teachers to make sure that they've completed them?
We can see on our end, what we
Mhm.
have noticed is students will come down and tell us that on their end, in their view, it says in progress. So we can see on our end, the student certainly, your son can certainly ask his teacher if the letter has been submitted. We can also check as the counselor to see that the letter, in fact, has been submitted. But yeah, it's a weird, we've given feedback to Naviance in previous years, and that is one of the things that we have mentioned. So they may or may not have fixed it for this year. But there has been in the past where students have indicated that it never doesn't change. It just says in progress. And essentially when the counselor gathers all the data and all the application materials and sends them out, then it shows them that everything is submitted. So
So
yeah,
when it says in progress, what has happened?
that the teacher has received the request,
Mhm.
and what that means as far as whether or not it's been officially uploaded is sort of where there's a little bit of an issue with the platform.
I
So
see. Okay, so
us
he should
checking,
just
student
follow up.
checking, yeah, we can always let them know because we can see everything on their page.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, so, I
We
see
also
there's
have
another
Mr. Ponte,
motion.
Mr. and
Yeah,
Mrs.
perfect.
Ponte.
Hello.
Hi, this is Janie. Thank you guys for doing this for us. I just
course.
have a quick question. When when you take multiple SATs, you know, like ballpark, how long does it take for them to update the new score? Because my understanding is that Naviance, that I guess the SAT scores automatically go. It's not something that we can update.
If a student takes multiple SAT tests, they will they get super scored. So wherever the SAT scores are sent, they'll see every administration that a student took. It's been our experience that it's usually a couple of weeks for them to be uploaded. So if a student took the SAT, say in September, then requesting that their SAT scores be sent, they should probably wait maybe a week, 2 weeks, and then request their SAT scores to be sent to their colleges, which is important to note that that's not a process that the school is part of. Students have to request standardized test scores to be sent directly to the schools that they are applying to because they are official from the school. We have unofficial record of College Board exams and test scores, but it doesn't come from us. The student has to request them. And that's the way that they ensure, the college ensures that they are accurate and they are directly from the College Board, the company. So
Right.
thank you for bringing that up. That was actually a good segue. But
No
yeah, it's
problem.
usually a couple weeks. Logging into the College Board platform, a student can see if the score has been updated and uploaded.
Right,
as
that's
long as
what
they
I
have
did. So
access.
we went into College Board and it's not reflected in Naviance, the updated score, but we just got the score. So I figured there was
Okay,
going to be a
so
lag.
we will get a bulk of Naviance scores sent to us and we upload them onto Naviance.
I
So
see.
that is only for internal data. So the fact that the SAT scores are on Naviance is just internal. So yeah, actually that was even more clear that you said that we were able to clarify. Yeah,
Excellent.
official scores are to be sent from College Board as a request to the colleges that students are applying to. The fact that they appear on Naviance is strictly for informational purposes.
Okay, it's actually really helpful though, because it does give you, like when you're doing your searches,
Yes.
it gives you
Oh,
like
yes.
reach and safety. So
Right. We get a
that's-
bulk
yeah.
scored. We get we get a file, and we're able to
Mhm.
bulk upload all the SAT scores for all of our students that sat for every administration. We usually upload those onto Naviance as soon as we get them, which can be maybe a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
So yeah, that process is there's a little human element to that process, but again, it's only for internal data for reference. So yeah,
Okay.
thank you for bringing that up. That was a good point.
And do you know by any chance the August 27th just became available on Saturday? Do you guys have an idea of when you're going to be uploading that one?
I don't know if we got that bulk upload yet. We can find that out.
Okay.
Do you know who your child's counselor is?
I think it's Mr. Imperatori.
Okay,
I
you can
probably
email
butchered his
Miss-
name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. No, you're right, Mr. Imperator. You can email him, and we'll, as a department, we can ensure that if it's somewhere in the department, if it's been uploaded, one of our counselors is on leave right now, and she's usually the point person. So if it in fact made its way to her email address, it's the 27th of August. It might or might not have gotten to us yet, but we can certainly find that out.
Okay. And when you say that they super score, does that mean, like, do the parents have to do anything in order
No.
to get them to super score, or it's just going to
Nope.
automatically pick the best sec from each section?
Correct. So if they did better on the math
Wow.
section on one administration and better on the language arts section of another administration, the college will take those two separate scores to give them a better score.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you
that-
so
that-
much.
That helps, but you might have to
Wow.
find out from the school, the individual colleges that you're applying to, whether or not they in fact will do that. But most schools do super score, but it's certainly something to check in on. It should be posted either on the individual school page under admissions, or you can get that information simply by calling the Office of Admissions. You'll get, like I said, you'll probably get a grad assistant or one of the front end people, and they'll be able to answer that question pretty quick.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah, so the slide that we have up is just how to request those
Sorry,
letters of
with one more
recommendation.
question that I just want to make sure that if the questions are about where we are.
Oh, yeah,
that
Oh,
answer.
right, right.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, we're still in the same process.
So we will, Mr. Mailman will be up.
Hi, thanks for taking the call.
course.
My question is along those lines. How often is the grade point average updated on Naviance? Based on, like currently, does that reflect the full junior year? Or is it done on every marking period? So how often is that done?
It's usually only done for seniors at the midpoint of the year and then the final. Otherwise, it's only annual for
Okay,
for every other grade level. So
So
what
the
you see on
current GP
Naviance may not be what's accurate to date.
Well, so the current GPA on Naviance, does that reflect the full junior year for a senior?
Yes, yes.
Eh,
But
okay.
there's been some reporting by students to us that what appears on Naviance is not accurate. So we're working out some of those kinks. We have an open line of communication with the Naviance company. We're calling them all the time saying, hey, we need somebody on your end to fix this. Something's not right. And that did come up today because we had some students. We had the student presentation during the lunch block today, and we had a great turnout. We were really happy with how many kids came out. And that came up with a handful of kids. So that's certainly something we're looking into. If you want the most accurate GPA on file, definitely either check the OnCourse because the OnCourse should be accurate, or just call the counselor and we can provide that for you.
Right, well, but the OnCourse for, if you look up junior year totals, it doesn't really give you GPA, it just gives you the end of year grades.
Okay, so you're talking cumulative, like all the three years combined?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, the cumulative might not show up on OnCourse, but we could certainly provide that. And we're working on having it Naviance be accurate with that as well.
Gotcha. Now, as far as class size is concerned, you said the class size was 304 in the senior class, but I got an email from my child's counselor who said that the class size was 317.
That's an incorrect number only because there are students that are not part of the GPA that are still considered seniors within our system. So we've had discussions internally as a department to clarify that because that number is different. So the students that are part of that program, to give you some insight, are we call that they're part of the program that are students that are classified that are educable until they're 21 years old. So
Sure.
they don't have a GPA to be reflected in the system. So that's why
I
that
got it.
number.
I understand. So 304 is the
Yes.
GPA that is counted, the student size, class size that is counted.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, Perfect. So letters of recommendation can be requested under that colleges tab on Naviance. And then something that students have to do, and most students have done it just because we sent this out junior year for them to work on. Some students missed it at the time. They can absolutely still fill it out, but it's the student college questionnaire. So this is something that will allow your child's counselor to write their letter of recommendation. This is a survey that asks students about their proudest moment in high school, about all the things that they've been involved in, different outside circumstances that they would want schools to know about. So this lets us really highlight all of those important things in their letter of recommendation. So students can access that under the About Me tab, under surveys from your school, and then student college questionnaire.
The student college questionnaire, just as a side note, is an internal document.
Yes.
Colleges do not see it. We use it as reference so that we can write a very specific, very personalized letter of recommendation as their counselor. Although we might have great relationships with students and know a lot about them, we might not know that they volunteer outside of school or that they're affiliated with a religious organization or a social organization where they're doing things within their community, where they're working. All these things tell a college what type of student or what type of person your child is. So the student college questionnaire is tell us everything that you want us to brag about in your counselor evaluation and letter recommendation. There's also a survey right here says the parent brag survey. If there's anything that you want to add that maybe your child didn't talk about, you can brag about your child. Again, it's an internal document that only we see. This is that graduation survey that we mentioned, where that the data that we use to compile statistics for future generations is what students will do at the end of the year. So this is part of the application process. This is end of the year. This one can be done. Not every parent does it, but if you wanted to, if you read your students and they've covered everything, that's fine as well. But certainly it's an opportunity.
So something that we started to touch upon before, the college rep visits at Wayne Valley. So throughout the fall, we have different reps from various colleges come and visit the school. So this is a really good opportunity for students to just get an idea of, first of all, if they would even be interested in a school without necessarily having to commit to going and traveling and visiting that school. Some of the schools that we get to visit are schools that are in different states. And so it helps students to just get a better idea if they would even be interested in going there before taking a 15-hour drive to go visit the campus. It also helps students to show the rep that they are interested in the school. Oftentimes the reps that come to Wayne Valley are people who are going to be reading that student's application. So this is a really good chance for the student to make a good first impression, show that they're really interested in the school, because that is all recorded information. Those reps will keep track of the students who were interested and the students who showed up to those visits and showed that they are interested in that school, so that they can keep that in mind when reviewing their application. And that can sometimes help a student get accepted to a school. Students do have to register on Naviance to attend one of these rep visits. Again, it's just, I believe it's under the colleges tab, and then there's a college visits tab.
It's right on the homepage. It's on the
Thank
homepage.
you.
Bottom right
Perfect.
of the homepage, it says what's new.
Even easier.
Parents can see it. Parents cannot register their children because you don't have the same access as your child's account. So you can see who's visiting and then say, hey, Tommy, make sure you jump on Naviance on your account and log in and sign up. Because if you don't sign up, you might miss out on an opportunity to rub elbows with somebody that's going to be the first read on your application, which can go a long way. So these visits are a great opportunity for students to meet regional reps. The first view on applications, it's a good opportunity for students to get some face time.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So they are very important. A great opportunity for students. So the thing is, on the flip side is, if a student has, say, a test in class that day and they would be missing it, the teacher is allowed to say that the student can't miss that to go to the visit. So it happens oftentimes, teachers are very understanding and they know that these visits are going on. So typically teachers are pretty accommodating with having students go when they're interested. But on occasion, there will be instances that come up if a student can't go for whatever reason. But students would have to get a pass ahead of time to show their teacher that they're going to this visit that day. And then it's the student's responsibility to remember to go to that visit. So another way to access the list of visits, under the colleges tab, college visits, students can click there. And then they can see the whole list of which schools are going to be coming on which days and which times, and then they can register there as well. So this is what it would look like then when they go in to view that list. So it's going to have all of the schools. Again, we have a lot coming. They start, I believe, next week already, and they go through typically, I want to say, to the end of November. So there are a lot of schools, students are able to see them in advance and see which ones they might be interested in, and just kind of plan for when they would want to go to those visits.
We average between 40 and 60 visits every year. So it is a great opportunity. I don't know what the set limit is as far as attending these, but we track to see who comes down, because obviously, not that we would anticipate anybody taking advantage of just hopping out of class, but it should be focused. Students should be choosing schools that they have a serious interest in.
So something again that we also started to mention before, the transcript verification form. So this is something that students did receive today. So if they didn't get it today, or if they don't have it for whatever reason, they could always just drop by the counseling office and grab one of them. But this just allows students to verify that their transcript all looks accurate and correct to them. They can sign off on it then and say that they are fine with that transcript being sent to schools. And then once they return that to us, that's when we'll be able to send out their transcript for them. There's also going to be a spot on this form for the student to fill out which teacher letter of recommendation they would prioritize. If, say, they have 2 letters that they've requested and a school will only accept 1, students are allowed to pick which letter we want the schools to receive, or I'm sorry, that they want the schools to receive. And then that's how we would determine which letters would get sent out. So this is all important information that the student would just need to consider, and then it would get returned to us when they're done.
So yeah, the transcript is not confidential information, but it's private. So that's why we need permission.
So for SATs and ACTs, again, it's the student's responsibility to send that information to colleges. So we do not have access to students' College Board account. Likewise, if the student took the ACT, we don't have access to that account either. Students are responsible for going in and sending those scores on their own. A lot of schools are moving towards being test optional, which is great. It's something that schools kind of started moving towards recently. I know that some schools last year were saying that they might move back to requiring tests this year, now that it's easier for students to get a seat and there's not as much of an impact with COVID and getting a spot for the SATs or the ACTs. But it's ultimately going to come down to the individual school. So typically when schools come in for rep visits, they are able to let us know whether or not a school is test optional. So it's good information for the student, or if the student's just unsure, or if it's not specified in the rep visit, the student can easily reach out to admissions for that individual school and just ask them. And that's information that they'll be able to get pretty easily from the school. So kind of similar to what we touched upon before in terms of class size and GPA and decile rank. This is information that we use in order to complete students' applications. So again, class size is 304, GPA and rank are both weighted. Again, we report by decile only in terms of rank. Students can report their numerical rank if they choose to, but they do not have to. So this chart is what we use to determine the decile rank that a student's in. So again, it's based on GPA. It's based on the student's individual class. So determined by the GPAs of their peers now specifically. So this can kind of just give an idea of what that would look like for the student. So the college acceptance board, this is kind of like the fun part after the stressful part of doing all the applications. So once students start to get their acceptances, they get to have their little card put up on the college acceptance board so that they can show where they've been accepted. So it's just kind of a nice way for students to celebrate all those accomplishments once they do start to hear back from schools. And then just kind of a few things to wrap up on things to do now. So definitely communicate with your school counselor if you haven't done so already. So we always make sure to meet with seniors throughout the fall, just to make sure that we're on the same page and to make sure that they're on top of what they need to do and that we're doing what we need to do to support them. But of course, as parents or guardians, if you have any questions for us counselors, like please don't hesitate to reach out. Definitely continue to visit colleges, whether that's through the rep visits at Wayne Valley or going to college campuses. And then sign the transcript verification form, something that we gave to students already, but if they need a copy, they can always come get it from us. Sending SAT or ACT scores if that applies to the specific school. Asking teachers for recommendation letters. So doing that in person first and then requesting them on Naviance, completing the student college questionnaire if students haven't done so already. Continuing to work on the essay. I know that a lot of students started working on them in English class, or some students mentioned working on it with a tutor. So whatever it is, just continuing to finalize that essay. Again, signing up for the rep visits at school, and then just start applying. So some students will ask like, well, when am I allowed to start? And they could start now. So students are absolutely and encouraged to just start doing their applications now and get it done early, and making sure that they're just on top of what they need to do and not rushing at the deadlines.
One of the things that's important to mention is this is a process. This is not one day open it up and get everything done. So we recommend students chip away at it, do a little each day. As one task, it's monumental. If you break it up and look at it every day, they should be on their Naviance every day or every other day until they're applied and accepted is what we recommend. You should be active. They should be looking at this stuff constantly. We will meet as their counselors with them whenever they need to. Now that we've had the large group presentation, we've presented to parents. Now we'll meet with students individually as much as they need us to meet with. They can come in during the lunch block. Each counselor is going to put out, starting, I think, beginning next week, don't quote me on that, we'll be putting out a sign up for students to come down in a period that's they're free, whether they have a study hall, whether it's during the lunch block, whether they have a course where they're not doing anything at maybe the teacher's absent and they had a light day in that class, they can come down. So we schedule to have students come down and see us, take as much time when we have these individual meetings. If parents want to be involved, if you want to Zoom, be a part of that meeting with students, that's fine. We're more than happy to accommodate in any way that we can, so that all the while students don't feel like this is insurmountable, that we're here holding their hand the whole way. It's not so bad, but it's cute when students, they say, oh, I got all my stuff in. Oh, I feel so good. I'm done. And we turn around, we're like, well, you still have to go to college. So just keep that in mind. You're done with the application. But it is a bit of a weight off their shoulders in the beginning part of the school year as a senior. Then they you can breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief, and then, get on with their 12th grade, So it is a task. It's a big undertaking, but we're here for them every step, and they just need to put in the effort and the time to just chip away at it little each week.
And then the final warning that we like to give everyone is some schools will look at social media accounts. So we always advise students to just err on the side of caution when they post. Ideally, having accounts on private, because you just never know what schools might see or might deem inappropriate. So just encouraging students to use their best judgment and putting accounts on private if possible, if they're willing to, at least while applying to colleges.
As a reminder, there is a financial aid PowerPoint presentation being presented at 6:30 on the 28th of this month with a financial aid professional. We've had him probably about 5 years running, do presentations for parents. We will send out the link. It's a great presentation. This presentation will also be recorded and will be added to our YouTube channel. So if at any point you want to refer to this specific presentation with the discussion, it is available. It will be available probably tomorrow or the day after. The PowerPoint in general, without commentary in this recorded presentation, is available on the Wayne Valley specific Wayne Valley page under counseling, under senior presentation. You just click on the photo of that first slide that we saw, take you right to the presentation. It's accessible to parents, students alike. So certainly take a look at it, contact us, email us, call us, whatever questions you have, please don't hesitate. This is the Remind code. This is another way in which we send out information to students. This isn't for parents, just so you know, this is for students. We send out notifications through the Naviance platform to students and parents, but we also send out reminds through the Remind platform just to students, because I think that was probably the best way to contact them, because when they sign up through Remind, it comes through as a text message on their phone, and they all have their phones on them all the time. So we had a tremendous turnout because we sent out a Remind right before the lunch block started today. So we had a huge presentation with a lot of students in there. So that's good. We obviously want them all to be, know this entire process and have as little questions as possible. So that's sort of our goal. And that's it.
So thank you so much to everybody who joined us tonight. We really appreciate you being here. Of course, just to reiterate, we are always available for any questions either that you have or that your child has. So if anybody has any lingering questions right now, we'll be here for a couple minutes, but otherwise, if you don't have time or if anything comes up in the coming weeks, please just reach out to us.
And if you don't know who your child's counselor is, just contact the main office. They'll patch you through. No, I think we have a couple questions.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the transcript.
Sure.
Does the transcript include each marking period's grades and the year-end grade, or just
No.
the year-end grades?
Only the year-end grades, and they tabulate to a cumulative average for that year. And at the bottom of the transcript, where there's a sign off for it to be considered official, we'll list the cumulative GPA, which for the initial transcripts that get sent out with their initial application materials is the first 3 years cumulative. They'll see the final grades for every class that they took, and their senior year schedule is on the initial transcript.
Okay, and what about grades for senior years? Are those included, or it depends on the timing?
Well, they don't put out first marking period grades. If schools do request mid-year reports, we send those out. So they'll want to see if it's a very competitive school. Typically, I wouldn't say all schools look for mid-year. Unless a school asks for it, then it's not assumed that they need to be sent. And they'll have mid-year average for how students are performing up until the end of the second market period. And then that final average is on the transcript, obviously indicating the student did graduate, and that transcript generally is only sent out to one school, and that's the school the student commits to.
Students
thank
can also ask, they can also ask us to send their mid-year grades. So I know that sometimes students will say that their mid-year senior grades look really impressive and they want us to send it, and that's absolutely fine too.
Great, thank you.
Of course. Hi, Mrs. Turco.
Hi, just so we're clear, we can submit the applications prior to getting the letter of recommendations or their transcript?
Yes.
Okay.
Colleges understand that the process is not uniform in that the student portion of the application must be in by the deadline. They understand that the supporting documentation, the school profile, the letters of recommendation, the evaluation, the counselor letter, The documents that come from the school, they are to follow. They come after the student has applied and said, hey, Mr. Paul, I applied to these schools, just letting you know. And then I say, okay, I'll submit. And it's literally a click of a button.
Thank you.
Of course. Hi, Mrs. Mercado.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for having this information session.
Of course.
So my son was a transfer in his junior year.
Okay.
Do I have to contact his old high school for an official transcript, or
No.
does that incorporated?
When he came in, we do a transfer credit evaluation and we create a transcript for him based on the courses and the classes and the grades that he received from his previous school. And we put it onto a Wayne Valley transcript. So you don't have to do anything.
Okay, great.
He will get a copy of what his transcript looks like. And he should bring it home and you look at it with him to verify that it's accurate. And that's what we submit. That's why we have that transcript verification form, is to be signed off on, is because you're verifying it's accurate and we have permission to send out. So transfer students, we have transfer students all the time. When they come in, we evaluate their transcript on their way in and put it on their Wayne Valley transcript. It will say on his transcript that he was in a previous district prior, but it doesn't impact his grades or his overall GPA in any way. You don't have to reach out or anything. It's all part of our process.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Okay, so if that's the last question, then thank you so much to everybody who joined tonight. Again, we really appreciate having such a great turnout and having so many people join. So if you have questions that come up over the next few weeks or the next months, like, please do not hesitate at all to reach out. Again, we're here to support you. We're here to support your child. But otherwise, you are free to go and enjoy the rest of the night. So thank you again for coming.